Okay, now we are going to the world of sport. It is Breakfast Central. Taking you to the world of sport, you started from, of course, the UFC 278. We are previewing a rematch 7 years in the making as welterweight king Kamaru Usman puts his title on the line against the man who's gone undefeated since their last meeting as Leon Edwards. Pound for pound, King Kamaru Usman will look for the sixth defense of his 170-pound title when he comes top contender Leon Edwards, whom he first defeated unanimous decision in 2015. The December 2015 encounter was Usman's first fight after winning season 21 of The Ultimate Fighter. UFC President Dana White believes that the time has come to start putting welterweight champion Kamaru Usman in the decision for the greatest MMA fighter of all time. And to join us in this conversation is MMA journalist from England, Kyle Demond. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, a rematch some 7 years in the making, this time for the welterweight title with a headline UFC 278 on Saturday from the Salt Lake City, Utah. So who has got more pressure? Is it a challenger or the champion at this time, Carl?
I would say there's more pressure on Leon, to be honest. Obviously, Kamaru already has a win over him, so that's a huge factor going into this fight. But Leon has had to work really, really hard to get this title shot. He's not much of a talker. He does a lot of his work just in the octagon and lets that speak for itself. So he's really had to push to get this. So now that it's here, he really has to deliver. Whereas, like I said, Usman being the champ and having a win over him will definitely be confident that he can do that again on Saturday night.
Dismissed the results of the first meeting 2015 between these two top contenders. But that's in the welterweight division though, and it happened so long ago. But what happens if Leon Edwards upsets Kamaru Usman, this time at the UFC 278?
I mean, it's obviously an incredibly tough ask, but Leon is, in my opinion, the biggest threat to Usman's title reign. Even though he has beaten him before, they've both improved so much. So obviously we get to find out who has improved the most in that amount of time, because the first fight was so long ago in their careers now. But it would take a very big task for Leon to get the win. So it would be very tough to call that happening with how great Usman has been in his last several fights.
Okay, both fighters are combined 22-0. Yes, since their first fight in 2015, which suggests how much fighting has evolved in the aftermath of their first meeting. What is the catch, Kyle? Who are you tipping to dominate this time?
They've both evolved so much. Leon, you can see it in his performances. His grappling is a lot better, and that's what essentially cost him the first fight. But on the flip side of that, Usman's striking is so much better now that started to catch up with Leon's biggest strength as well. As I said, it would be very, very difficult for me to pick against Kamaru Usman. I do live somewhat near Leon Edwards, so I do have a kind of home fighter bias, maybe. But it would be very, very difficult for me to make a convincing argument that Leon will get this done. The odds are definitely stacked against him. Yeah.
The odds being stacked against him, it's getting harder and harder to deny Kamaru Usman that greatest of all time debate. Cal, has Usman done enough just yet to warrant an inclusion into that list of greatest of all time?
I don't think so just quite yet. Maybe.
Why?
He's definitely getting there. I believe if he wins this fight, he will be tied for the longest win streak in UFC history. So that's a huge record to have. And his welterweight title reign has been absolutely incredible. If he can keep that going, I think the next big step for him is what is left for Usman outside of welterweight, because we are getting to a point now where he has beaten all of the contenders in the division. I can't ever see him moving up to middleweight to face his good friend Israel Adesanya. I don't think that's part of the plan for Usman at all. However, he has talked about moving up another weight class above that to light heavyweight, which would definitely cement his legacy as one of the greatest of all time. If he's not there already, which there is definitely a conversation, I wouldn't have him as one of the top 2 or 3 just yet, but I can definitely see it happening sometime in the future.
But the only UFC opponent to give Usman legitimate trouble was Colby Covington, and Usman defeated him twice. He went twice to make a statement with that one. Well, since in line to give Usman a lift, at least to get to that level of being the greatest of all time, Cal.
Yeah, well, as I said, I think Leon is the biggest threat. Leon's put on an incredible win streak of his own. Outside of Leon Edwards, in terms of new contenders, you've got Bilal Muhammad is on a very good win streak. He's got a big fight coming up, but you've also got Khamzat Chimaev taking on Nate Diaz very soon. You would assume that the winner of that will be next for the winner of Usman and Edwards. So there are still some contenders out there for him to beat, but the majority of the top 5 or 10 in the division are people that Usman has already beat. So obviously that's not really an exciting challenge for him or for the fans. So I think he's probably got 2 or 3 more defenses in him at welterweight before we get to the point where he's already lapped the division in a sense.
Okay, what about Khamzat Chimaev? We know both fighters are looking for the title, and this time the welterweight title is on line. Between the fight between Usman and Leon Edwards, but he has got one contender waiting in line for that title, and that's Khamzat. Will Usman be able to pull this through?
That will be a very interesting one. It'll definitely be the toughest matchup for Khamzat. Obviously, Kamaru Usman is currently the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport. I think a lot of people would agree. And his biggest strength is his wrestling. His wrestling is absolutely phenomenal, and that is Khamzat's bread and butter also. So to see him go up against an elite wrestler like Kamaru would be very, very interesting. It would be a huge fight, probably the biggest prospect, the most exciting guy in the UFC right now versus arguably the best fighter in the promotion as well. So that would be a huge one. I think that would definitely push Usman up the greatest of all time rankings by several places with a win over Chimaev.
Okay, let's put you on the sport right now. What do you think will be the breaker between Usman and Edwards, and who are you tipping to win?
Again, I have home country bias being from England and not living too far from Leon. So I've been waiting for him to have this opportunity for so long, and I truly believe that if he was fighting maybe 5 years ago, he would be the welterweight champion of the world by now. But it just so happens he's around at the same time as Kamaru Usman, who, as I said, it would be incredibly tough for me to make a convincing argument that he will lose on Saturday night, because Usman is absolutely phenomenal. He is undoubtedly one of the best fighters in.
All right, network there, but... Okay, Kyle, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Kyle, are you still there? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so it would be so tough for me to argue that Usman is going to lose on Saturday night. He is one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the octagon, technically. So even though I have home country bias for Leon Edwards and I've waited so long for him to get this title shot, it would be very tough for me to argue that way. Usman is so good right now, and I truly believe that Leon, if he had been around before Kamaru Usman, he would be welterweight champion already. It just so happens he's around at the same time as Kamaru Usman, who doesn't look like he's dropping that belt anytime soon. But this is the biggest test of his career, I believe, for that welterweight title. And Leon is a phenomenal fighter on a great win streak, so it'll be a great fight. Okay,
we can't wait to see what the outcome would be. Will it be? And still the welterweight champion, that announcement we made for Saturday, all would have a newly crowned champion in the welterweight division. Thank you, Kyle Dimond, for joining us today on Breakfast Sports.
Thank you.
All right, always a pleasure to have Kyle there, but we're counting down to Saturday, August 20, where we'll have Kamaru Usman put his belt on the line against a former challenger, a challenger who is used to, Leon Edwards, for Saturday. There you have it, sport update at this time. Back to you, Osa and Olive.
less than 48 hours to go. I guess we'll see at the end of the day who becomes the new champion. Osage, why are you throwing your weight behind?
Definitely Team Usman.
Of course.
Osage, what
No
about
need
your
to even
GoFundMe? What about your GoFundMe?
Sorry?
Yeah, that one is still, I'm still putting it out there, right? For people to donate to the supporters
Olive
club.
Osa has got a GoFundMe.
What's the GoFundMe for again?
Usman.
My personal account.
Oh, because you have 55 naira to the end of the month.
No, I mean for Team Usman supporters club.
All right. We'll wait
Also
and see.
remember, just before we let you go, AJ is fighting this weekend also. I
Yes,
think.
of course.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right,
of
so
course.
we'll definitely talk about
fights.
it. Thank
I
you
hope
very
they'll
much.
be kind to him. Nigerians be kind to him because we're fond of only tilting in favor of the person when they win. But that's all that we have for sports this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.